Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butler. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to say it with me, enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want to get you fired up about poetic inspirational insight. Today we are talking to author Martha Butler about her book, Poetic Heart-to-Heart Messages. So you know what I'm going to tell you. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Martha. Thank you so much for joining us here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, before we get started talking about your book, I always give the author an opportunity to introduce him or herself to perhaps a listener or two that's unfamiliar with your work. So if you could please, can you tell us a little bit about what makes Martha Butler Martha Butler?
Well, Martha Butler is very approachable, friendly, a happy person, and I have many friends. I'm a Christian, and I am a service person. I am always working with community service and doing whatever I can to help people.
I love that. You know, I was raised in a very civic-minded family as well, and there's like, listen, we have been blessed, so we are going to be a blessing. So I definitely applaud you about that. I love it. Now, being an author, is that something that you always wanted to do, or did you find that it was just the next thing on your life path?
It was not planned. It just happened. So it was not something I planned. I was told that I was a good writer. I was encouraged to write, but I never did.
And why do you think that you put it off? Do you think that there's a reason necessarily, or did you just find that now just seemed more appropriate?
Well, it turns out that I've been writing over the years. It was just for my personal benefit. It wasn't something I was drawn to in terms of publication. So I was actually trying to help a friend who was really in distress about her daughter not talking with her. And she looked at me and she said, "Can you help me?" I had no idea what I could do to help her and her daughter communicate. So I just said, "Yes, I'll help you. I'll write a book of poetry and invite your daughter back into your life." And that's how it started.
What a great inspiration to get started and to, move forward and to help a friend. That is such a beautiful story. I love that. Now, in writing poetry, many times an author will write because it's something that has gone on in their personal lives that has inspired them to share that expression. It can be something that they've experienced, something that they've seen, something that they wish the world would aspire to, so on and so forth. What was your inspiration for writing or selecting the poems to include in your book?
Well, life experiences, stories from my mother, and just listening to friends. I became a deacon in the church, and I was privy to many situations where people needed help. So just listening to the pain in people and the pain that I experienced when my grandmother died, I just took all of that and wrote about life experiences that were inspired by real people.
And boy, does life give us enough to write about. So I can definitely understand. I can understand that. Now, what did you learn when writing your book? Did you learn anything about yourself or about friends and family? Sometimes it's an eye-opening experience when we share our work with others.
As I was writing the poetry, I actually learned or confirmed that I could feel the pain that my friend was feeling. And I understood that I could verbalize that pain. And it just made me feel stronger in terms of being able to help her to move on. And because in terms of helping people, it's really not about what you say. It's trying to communicate in a way that they can forgive and move on with their life. So it's just a combination of helping them to realize that there's always hope.
I love that. There is always hope. And we definitely have to remember that, and I'm so glad that not only do you remind us, the scripture reminds us of that as well, that there is a hope for the future. I agree with you. Now, are there any things that perhaps surprised you the most while writing the book? In fact, let me ask you two sides of that coin. Were there any things that surprised you? Flip side, were there any things that perhaps disappointed you or you didn't expect that were a little less than positive? Anything like that happen as well while you were writing the book?
Well, what really surprised me was how easy it was to write the poems. I would wake up in the morning and the words just flowed from me. It was amazing. What surprised me were the different places that the verses came from. One poem was from my mother. These are my last good years. She said that to me when I was in conversation one time, and she used the term looking down on me. And I actually wrote a poem because I was thinking the daughter was taking too long to come to her mother, and she needed to make amends with her mother and before it was too late. So those two poems came to me from the inspiration of my mother.
That is such a wonderful prompting, and I have to agree with you. So many times I think that mother-daughter dynamics can be quite difficult for some, and we do need to come to a reckoning or a closure or an acceptance before one's mother passes away. So I can really see how that poem will be an inspiration for others. I love that. I love that. Now, what was an early experience, perhaps, where you learned that language had power? Were you at any particular age when you said, hey, these words are something here?
Wow. Wow. What a question. When I was young, there were lots of sayings. Do good for evil. But the one that stood out to me the most was, sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never harm you. And as a young person, little girl, the words would really hurt. And that's when I learned that words are very destructive and hurtful. So it's important to understand when you're talking that you put the words out there and you can't pull them back. So you really have to be careful with what you're saying and not hurt someone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's quite interesting that they used to say that sticks and stones may break your, but words will never hurt you. It's like, well, I don't know. Words pierce just as deep as a rock to the arm does. You know, so I was like, I don't know who came up with that, but it's like, that is a lie. words will definitely hurt you just as much. And for those who have been verbally abused, I think that they will agree that, tell you, words can cut you and they can cut you deep. So I'm so glad that you, on the flip side, are putting out some positive words. You're putting out some words into the atmosphere that we can definitely take some solace in, and remember that there's some positivity out there. Thank you for doing that. Now, where did you find that when you were writing and the process of getting it all out of your head and onto paper or your laptop or so, where did you find that you were the most productive when it came to the environment for writing? Did you need to be in a quiet place? Could you be with everyone else? Did you prefer to write in the morning, at night? What was your process?
I preferred being in a quiet place, and the morning was the best time for me because of the quiet. It was just quiet in the morning. And when you wake up, your mind is fresh, and it was easy for me to write early in the morning. However, when I am during the day, I can feel something, and I'll think of a thought. I'll have a thought. Then I will say, "Oh, I should have wrote it down," because sometimes I lose poems by not having my pad right there with me. But the thoughts of a poem can come at any time. The best time to write is in the morning.
I love asking that question because I find that each person really has. I find that with each person, there's an echo, which is why I keep pausing.
Mm-hmm.
And by chance, am I on the speakerphone?
Oh, yes, yes. You want me to take you off?
If you could just turn it down just a bit, because I can hear me.
Oh, okay.
If you can just turn it down just a bit.
Okay.
Or if you put your hand over the speaker while a little, just to kind of diffuse it just a little, whichever's easiest. Yeah.
Are we good? Are we good now?
Let's see. Yes, we are. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to pause for a second so that there's a space so that they can edit that out. Here we go.
Okay.
When you are writing, do you find that it energizes you, or do you find that there is a particular, I don't want to say draining or that it exhausts you, but do you find that writing is a day's work, or does it energize you?
Well, it energizes me. And when I'm talking with friends and when they share stories with me, my girlfriend recently was helping this senior citizen, and she shared with me her experience, and she was heartbroken at a reaction that she had gotten. And as I listened to her, I actually created a poem just from that conversation. But when we hung up, I went and wrote the poem and read it to her later, and she could not believe the words that I had put together. She just thought it was amazing. She said, "How do you do that?" So it energizes me to be able to put the feelings to paper and then someone read it and know, oh, that's exactly what I was talking about.
I love that. Well, Martha, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Well, the title of my book is Heart to Heart, Poetic Heart to Heart Messages. It is available on Amazon. You can contact me at facebook.com, Martha Butler, 7186.
Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for our Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butler. My guest today is Martha Butler, and we're talking about her book, Poetic Heart-to-Heart Messages. And I want you to go on and get comfy again because we are back to a wonderful interview. My next question for you, Martha, is dealing with your favorites, if you will. Now, we understand that just like a parent, you don't want to choose necessarily say, well, one of your children, is your fave, but there may be some things that you like about a particular one a little bit more than you like about another. So do you have a favorite poem that you have written or that you've included in the book, or do you find that they are all equally important because they talk about things that are equally as important?
Wow, what a great question that is. I actually have so many favorites that it's really hard to just like you say, recognize one specific one. But I love the one on page 4, When the Lights Come On. It is amazing. When I read it, every time I just feel so good. When the lights come on, will you be clothed or naked? And you're looking at yourself. Nobody's looking at you. You are looking at yourself in the mirror of life, answering that question. Will you be clothed or naked? Who are you? The other one I like is Invisible Walls, because invisible walls are walls that is built internally, where I chose to relate to the daughter in that the mother, every reprimand the mother had to try to take care of her was a wall, because it was something she was asked not to do. And those reprimands became the invisible wall between the mother and daughter. The mother really never was able to tell me what happened, but in just listening to her, she was just trying to protect her daughter. And it was amazing. So I love that. The other one, Finding Myself on 21. I like when I came up with the spaces between my thoughts. It's like, wow. I was amazed at that phrase.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. I love that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, what is the most difficult part did you find of the artistic process for you?
For me, marketing the book was the most difficult part. The book was published in 2017, and I had a personal experience in 2017 that distracted me. Well, actually, it motivated me, and then one that distracted me, because I was diagnosed with 2 aneurysms in the back of my head. And I said, I got to get this book published before something happens. I don't know anybody with aneurysms, and everybody I know with aneurysms are gone. So I got in a hurry to get this book published because I had to get it published. And then my brother died, and everything was just put on hold, so I never did anything with it. So marketing the book was the most difficult process because I couldn't get it together to do that. And it's amazing. And I think about a year and a half ago, I was cleaning out my email, and I saw a message from you that I had ignored. And it's just amazing that this year I responded to that message. So I think that everything happens in time. And so here it is. Mm-hmm. I'm connected with you now.
Absolutely. And my listeners have heard me say before that I don't believe in a thing called happenstance. that everything happens for a reason. The good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, it all happens for a reason. And many times we do have to just trust the process. We have to trust that everything is working according to God's plan. Even if we don't see it and we don't understand it, many times it's in hindsight that we see how perfectly everything worked out, or how much to task, or how much on track we actually were. But we didn't feel that way when we were going through it. So I can definitely understand. I can understand that. Now, for anyone that is looking for advice, they are a new author and they are trying to figure out the ups and downs and rounds of how to get started, how to stay motivated, how to go from, point A to point Z in this whole writing field. Do you have any tips for them, any bits of advice for them, any suggestions to help keep them moving forward?
Well, I would say that we all have a story to tell, and the story that you have is your own personal story. It can move people. It can free you by sharing it. Just telling your story can make miracles happen. And never think that someone else's story is better than yours, because there's no right or wrong way to share a story. The thing to do is start writing the story, because I had no idea this would happen in terms of me publishing a book. I wrote the poems and I put them in a binder to give to the mother, to give to her daughter. And however my brother came to visit, he read the poems. He said, "Oh no, you have to publish these poems." Your support systems around you are important. Your family is important. Where you are, get your energy to do things, just understand that you have the power. What feels good I am just led by my emotions. So when something doesn't feel right, I stop. And that's what happened. I had to pause, and I took that pause, and it was okay. And then when the wheels started turning again and things felt good, I'm back at work. But you really have to understand that there's a time to pause and restart. That there's no rush in life. This wheel is turning, and you are the power behind it. And through your faith and your beliefs and who you are, you'll be able to do whatever it is that you want. So if you have a story inside of you, then start writing.
I love it. If you have a story inside of you, start writing. That is absolutely on the money. I love it. Absolutely. Well, Martha Butler, I have enjoyed my time with you here today, and thank you so much for stopping by and visiting with us on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. But before I let you go, if you can please, one last time, can you remind everyone, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, my book is Poetic Heart-to-Heart Messages. It's found on Amazon. You can reach me at Facebook, Martha Butler 7186.
All righty. Again, Martha, thank you so much for spending time with me here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And listeners, as always, thank you as well for tuning in and spending time with us here today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.